What's going on, friends? Welcome in this afternoon. It's mid-afternoon, 3:30 p.m. in a hot southern Ontario. It's August 5th, of course, 2025. And last night, in regards to the Jack and Lily case, Daniel was key on several channels. Did he say anything of real interest? Not really. Again, he's into overexplaining and focusing on just how innocent he thinks he is in the circumstance. Hold on. We got into, if you go over to our community page, we got into some key reading about step parents and really a lot of studies and citing of studies, because they kept getting brought up in my searches of Grok and things like that. So I got into some things that you might or might not be interested in. It's not like you're getting juicy tidbits of story. It's just all statistics and analytics and the numbers. When it comes to risk factors and evolutionary psychology, if you will. Amanda Graham, good to see you. Thanks for making it on time and early tonight. Oh my God, your biggest fear is missing my live? We're just sitting around bullshitting and talking today. It's not like I'm bringing some drop dead content, but you know, it is refreshing. I even went over and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and analyze what the behavior panel said about this particular situation. And I thought it was the most lame shit ever. It was the worst. You know, I was just starting to not mind that Chase guy from the behavior panel, just because I saw a couple interviews of him, I think with Sean Ryan. Now I'm like indifferent. These guys are so fucking ridiculous. Like, they're fence riders. It's a hustle to them. They're not really attached to the situation. Not that they were necessarily saying things that disagreed or didn't align with what it was we're all saying in the first place. It's what else they introduced, like the nonsense, talking about how typical, you know, Daniel's response may be, considering the geographical location and the fact that Nova Scotians are what did he say? Slow and gentle. I'm like, dude, this guy is just on another level of fuck off. That really bothered me. So it's like Hollywood squares for pseudoscience, especially with those assholes. I think they got their popularity through Dr. Phil. You know, Dr. Phil McGraw has his issues, but he's good as well. I don't mind him. But it's all about the views at the end of the day. It's all about the conversation. And people like Daniel want to rely on this polygraph test as something substantial in the circumstance. It wasn't necessary to take a second polygraph examination in the sense. That's probably partially true in the circumstance, but I mean, of what use is it at this point? You know, considering all the bullshit and you're the main suspect. It's not an example as to how you're not guilty or key suspect in all of this at this point, Daniel. At this point, he's just playing stupid. He's more than willing to volunteer information to make himself look like he's completely ignorant of the actual meaning about most things in the English language, just to save face. What are you saying, Drippy? Behavior analysis is very subjective. In your opinion, you really do need to know the background to make sense, and even then, the subject bias. Right. Yeah, and I mean, we all know that YouTube's a hustle in that sense. It's just an opportunity to open up the conversation But it would be nice if it wasn't so sketchy. I mean, there's straight up content. It's not even interesting. So we could do a breakdown on that, and we could. I don't really want to talk too much about it. There's nothing really in there, other than them really keying in on some, I guess biting of his lips and some looking down to the left internal conversations and things like that. It's about as interesting as watching paint dry. Oh, Amanda Graham? No, it's not. They have no idea. So what they did at the behavior panel was look at the 8-minute clip that the CBC put out of a much longer interview, in-studio interview. When he came out and talked about how he passed the polygraph examination. So they talked all about useless things not associated with the case. They picked out the obvious things, but didn't really go into great detail. They're so scared they have to cover all their bases. Christ, they're obfuscating, but it's not like you expect too much from them. They have to have opinions separate from what it is that they practice. And that's not a big surprise. He's always talking about this affecting him, but never mentions how Jack and Lily feel. Since he thinks they're alive, Layla, they'd be traumatized if alive. And confused, odd as you know what. At this point for Daniel, offering anything up in the way of conversation is anything. Haven't you caught on yet? I don't even know how you could give the dude the time of day at this point in time. But some people have different perspectives. That's just my opinion. Well, some people are obligated to talk to Daniel now. We'll have to talk to you. Yes. Let me see. More info, personality typing and patterns of personality disorders, Drippy. I don't know. I don't like to be in a position to think that I'm the all-knowing in any of this, but we know enough. We know enough to know that old Daniel just isn't clicking. He isn't right. You've been, your Peter Hyatt void? You've been filling your Peter Hyatt void with Pat Brown. Peter will always be greatly missed. Yeah, I do miss Peter Hyatt. Pat Brown's okay, though. Pat Brown's pretty good. I don't actually watch her. I know I'm subscribed, but I know what she's up to. I know what she's up to over there. I haven't watched it lately, I should say. I haven't watched her lately. Jamie Williams, welcome in. Their day is coming, says... What is this color so off? Hold on. Anetti, Confetti, Jamie Williams, their day is coming. I imagine the forensics is taking more time than we would like. Oh, yeah. Sometimes you don't even get any information for 6 months. Like, when you there's false hope here. I think there's speaking of which, actually, I brought this up last night. You guys know what the peace model is in regards to how the RCMP usually question and investigate, or how things should look, would be all based off of the peace model, in my opinion. It's a structured framework used primarily in investigative interviewing, particularly by law enforcement in the UK and other countries, to conduct ethical and effective interviews with suspects, witnesses, and victims. It emphasizes a non-coercive, conversational approach to gather accurate and reliable information while minimizing the risk of false confessions or distress. The acronym PEACE, P-E-A-C-E, stands for P, planning and preparation. E, engage and explain. Account. That's A. And, we'll go into that in a second. C is closure, and E is evaluation. Oh my God, we're learning a little bit of something here today. So planning and preparation before the interview, Daniel, investigators plan the objectives, research relevant details, for example, case facts, background, and information, and prepare for the setting, questions, and approach to suit the interview or suspect. Now, let me pop this around a little bit. I got all kinds of things open. Hold on. PDFs all over the show. Just wait here. I listened to Mike Demand too. He's from South Africa. That's probably why I detected a little bit of Dutch, but I didn't listen to him all that long. But it sounds like he's from South Africa, by the way. So, yeah, Mike Demand is great. Amanda Graham. I broke down his from yesterday too, but it's all talking about Sonny's live stream. Excuse me, the girls. Well, Slim, yeah, he's not truthful. You're talking about Daniel taking the polygraph for law enforcement. Yeah, he can say anything he wants. You know, why does the rules of polygraph examinations and the such, they're not all the same, but all of a sudden he wants to present them a certain way. And the fact that he's bringing it up, you know, how he didn't murder, you know, Jack and Lily in that circumstance is concerning. You know, other than that, he didn't get in a lot of information from that little clip, other than, if you were looking really close, he publicly quashed the narrative that they presented to the RCMP. No, Queez, this is different than good cop, bad cop. This is the piece. Well, hold on, I'll get back to that in a second. I'll go right now. You're on the fence with Mike Demand? Yeah, he's good shit. I'm behind on anything that may have happened. I haven't been here in a week or so. Oh my God. You're not that behind, Jamie. You're not that behind. Hello, sweet tea. Jamie Williams, some stuff I agree with. Others, I think he's taking a leap and he's biased at this point. Are you talking about with the water and things like that? Yeah, I can see where, you know, I'm open to it. Like, you have to acknowledge where you're not at a position to recognize what's true. You just have to sit in limbo and wait for some time to pass in that sense. But through statement analysis, he spends a lot of time focusing on the water as of late. And I'm not discounting that at all, not quite the opposite. Maybe there's something to it. But you need more than just a hunch. He's just going off the statement analysis. That's all. You've got to be open to it, right? And he's onto something. However, above and beyond what supersedes it in my own personal mind, everything else aside, is that you're getting the information and you're basing all of that off a proven liar at this point, and a guy who's contradicted himself at every step. So to put a lot of, to take that leap, at some point you have to speculate. It's brave of him to do. But I think that there's probably an easier answer to this question at the end of it. And should we be privy to any of the information the RCMP had, like that we can beliefs a little bit more closer to what that is? Because there's a whole slice of the timeline we don't see, all based around, you know, being seen in public near the mall in that sense. He doesn't talk very much about that, or he hasn't. I wonder why that is. You know, it'd just be gambling. It'd just be speculating, which is cool. At any one time, we don't have enough information, but we should appreciate both sides at this point. You have reason to believe that they could be buried anywhere. Buried underwater. There could be something about the water you thinking, Drippy. But you have to remember the ocean is an important part of the culture here too. Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the ocean necessarily, but an inland lake or pond. Like, there's a few spots around there that I noticed. Lansdowne Lake has 2 properties on it. That's a high risk. You would think that he'd make a better decision and go to another pond just down the road and go there where there's nobody on. Why risk being seen in that sense? Especially if he's tweaking. No, Amanda Graham, you've got to make your husband a good dinner tonight in that sense. I mean, your husband needs to give you more attention in that sense, Layla. He's losing you. Frank has given up. What did you say? Frank has given up. He's let me enjoy my podcast. Hold on. Let me go finish this for you. Let me finish this about this piece model. So it gives you a good idea about how they're handling Daniel, no matter how helpful he says. So just quickly, the piece, the framework, the structured framework of peace. Let me see. Before the interview, investigators plan the objectives, research relevant details, and prepare the setting, questions, and approach to suit the interviewee. Oh, Daniel, come in and let me rub your back. The second one, at the start, they build rapport with the interviewee to create a comfortable environment. Oh, it's so comfortable. Explain the purpose of the interview. Oh, Daniel, we're here to talk about these kids. They explain the process and their rights. You have the right to remain silent, e.g. their legal representation for suspects. This fosters trust and encourages cooperation. Daniel can't wait to tell you all about how much he's cooperating. I even gave them everything. Like, this motherfucker had a choice in the matter. You didn't have a choice in the matter. They elicit detailed account from the interviewee using open-ended questions to gather their version of events. Technique like the cognitive interview for witnesses, victims, or conversation management for suspects, we'll get to that in a second, Daniel, are used to encourage free recall and probe for details without leading questions. So the C in peace means closure. Summarize the interviewee's account to ensure clarity and accuracy. Address any concerns, and there's plenty, and explain the next steps in the investigation. Electric chair. This maintains transparency and respect. And finally, evaluation. After the interview, assess the information gathered around a coffee table. Compare it with other evidence and determine if it's reliable or relevant. Reflect on the interviewee's performance to improve future interviews. So apparently the piece was developed in the early 1990s in the UK following concerns about coercive interrogation practices. The piece model, and you can deviate from that a little bit. The piece model is grounded in psychology and aims to balance investigative needs with ethical standards. It's widely used in countries like the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and is adaptable to various contexts, including workplace investigations. Oh yes, portion is a key technique used within the peace model of investigative interviewing, particularly when interviewing suspects to elicit accurate and detailed information in a structured, ethical, and non-coercive manner. I don't like that. I like the coercive one. But it's unreliable, isn't it? It's designed to encourage the interviewee to provide a full account of events while allowing the interviewer to maintain control of the conversation and probe inconsistencies or additional details. Key principles are conversation management developed by Eric Shepard. Congratulations. It's rooted in psychological principles and focuses on fostering cooperation, minimizing resistance, and ensuring clarity during interviews. It's particularly effective for suspects, but can also apply to reluctant witnesses. The technique balances open-ended questioning with focused probing to test the reliability of the interviewee's account. So there's stages of this conversational management technique. The first is called free recall. The interviewer invites the interviewee to provide their account of events in their own words. Well, that'll be fun with these two. Using open-ended prompts like, tell me everything you remember about that day. Daniel. The interviewer listens actively without interrupting, allowing the interviewee to speak freely. This helps capture their narrative and reduces the risk of leading or suggestive questions. Like, did you kill Jack and Lily? That's fairly suggestive, I think. Questioning to clarify and expand. After the free recall, the interviewer asks open-ended questions to clarify details or expand on specific points. For example, can you tell me more about what happened next, Daniel? Probing questions are used to explore specific aspects of the account, focusing on who, what, when, where, why, and how, to fill gaps or test consistency. The interviewer avoids leading questions that could influence the response to create a false memory. The interviewer systematically works through the account, breaking into key topics or events, for example, timeline, actions, interactions with others. Each topic is explored in depth, encouraging the interviewee to provide more detail while the interviewer assesses the coherence and plausibility of the narrative. Well, it's so difficult because everybody was drifting in and out of sleep, don't you know? But they knew they were outside, but they're not the type of parents to not be out there with their children when they're outside. So what does that have to do with anything at this point in time? So even in her first interview, that little slice there, she put herself, her own interest ahead of the kids, providing an early denial ahead of any sort of accusations. That's been kind of a pattern with these two. So there's a challenge phase if necessary, and that's going to be necessary here. If consistencies, check. Contradictions, oh, check, check. And gaps are identified, oh, check, check, check. The interviewer gently challenges the interviewee to explain them. Oh, Daniel, could you come in here 2 or 3 times a week and come in here and just explain some of these in a friendly manner? Why don't you bring me some coffee when you're on your way, son? You mentioned X earlier, but now you've said Y. Can you help me understand this a little better, Daniel? Challenges are framed respectively to avoid confrontation, maintaining a rapport while testing the reliability of the account. Oh, Daniel, are you sure that happened? Fantastic. Summarizing. Throughout the interview, the interviewer periodically summarizes the interviewee's account to ensure mutual understanding and accuracy. This also helps the interviewee feel heard and encourages further disclosure. What happened next, Danny? Summaries are particularly important because before moving to a new topic or concluding the interview. What? Oh, before moving to a new topic or concluding the interview. Yeah, you've got to summarize. Account. In the account phase of the peace model, conversation management is used primarily with suspects to obtain their version of events and test it against other evidence. Unlike cognitive interview, used for witness/victims, focusing on memory enhancement, conversation management is more structured and controlled, as suspects may be less cooperative or more guarded. So some examples in practice, friends. Imagine interviewing a suspect in a theft case. Free recall would be, an example of free recall would be, can you tell me what you were doing in the evening of the incident? And a probing would be, an example of probing. You said you were at home. Who else was there? What time did you arrive? Some examples of the challenge. Quote, you mentioned being home all night, Daniel, but a witness saw you near the shop at 8 p.m. Can you explain that? And an example of summary. Quote, so you've said you were at home with your friend from 7 p.m. onward. Is this correct? So it's supposed to detail, or it's supposed to encourage detailed voluntary accounts, reducing the risk of false confessions. It helps identify inconsistencies without confrontation. It's adaptable to different interviewee types, example, cooperative or resistant suspects. And it's supposed to align with ethical standards, ensuring interviews are admissible in court, which is important. Its limitations, they say, requires skilled interviewers trained in active listening and question formulation. May be time-consuming, especially with uncooperative interviewees, like Maleyha and Daniel. It relies on interviewers' ability to maintain rapport and control without escalating tension. Very, very difficult. Conversation management, this is called, is widely used in jurisdictions following the peace model, such as the UK and other areas we just talked about. It's valued for its balance of structure and flexibility in investigative interviewing. What's going on, Jenner? We didn't get it through all those stupid messages. I was so sickened yesterday by the shit that's being recycled by Daniel. It's not even worth really looking at, but I love to talk about it. You can talk about Daniel all day in that sense. No, fuck Julia. Listen. You'll get the update as they need to give you an update. The RCMP doesn't give out updates just for common courtesy in that sense. You might have to go, you can go ask them and talk to them at their place, but you probably see it, and I don't know because I'm not there, but you'll probably see it when they're ready to do something, or after they have done something. Yeah, Lynn, actually that peace model, if you go and watch a lot of Canadian interrogations, like interviews in that sense, it sounds about right. And yeah, you're talking about the Russell Williams interrogation. Yep. Osprey. That tint Jim guy bothers you? Why? I got something on that. Hold on. Why? What's wrong with tint? Why don't you like tint? What stands out to you? Tell me now. Where did I have that? Let me pull this up. So he was. Are you telling me he was on Crime Stories Obsessed, or not Crime Stories Obsessed? It's a Criming Shame with the girls over there. I find, like, you know how you can continue on the conversation and like when you dive into something. I've been uploading transcript after transcript, and it's finally starting to get really informative. I'm like, wow, this is really good. And then it told me I can't upload anymore. I have to start a new one because it starts comparing, especially this over time, with Daniel's statements. And it streamlines and associates things. That's why I was able to, if you checked my community page out yesterday. We'll slide over there in a moment. Some of you left some comments that were very nice. Thank you very much. Of the chart that I had there for easy reference with the suspects in the situation, what made them a suspect, and what the likely outcome and charge would be based off the scenario. And of course, my friends, that was generated through my friend Grok3 here on X. But it didn't analyze my statements. It analyzed the statements of Daniel and things over time, and it came up with this streamlined chart. Because I kept asking it, following up with this no body prosecution scenario. Let me see what they were talking about. So I went way back. What is this? So this is Sunny's Live. I got started at Sunny's Live, but that's last week. I'll start there. I'll read it down, but I'll skip through it. So the statements of Daniel. No, thank you. Not right now. Oh, hold on. No. Not right this second. Hold on. I'm being torn in two directions. Hold on. Where did this start? Relationship dynamics with Daniel. Oh, this is Maleyha's statements. That's why. Maleyha's denial statements. Response to allegations of taking items. Focus on finding her children. Bullshit. Children calling Daniel dad. Response to allegations of drug involvement. Okay, so we'll skip ahead. We already went through all of that shit. Then I went to Justin's because he had the statements. And he was talking about Maleyha's statements. And she was talking about how she was aware of the shit show. I just want to say how completely disgusted I am. Maleyha's absolutely disgusted, friends, that you guys have all went and gone and turned this into a shit show. Wonder what she means by that exactly. She's aware of what exactly? What's going on? Maleyha's statement, I heard the kids that morning, yes. Daniel was sleeping beside me the entire time from 6:18 to around 9:40 when I woke up. Well, now the timeline's coming in. Bullshit. That's an entire night's sleep right there. How many night sleeps do you need in a goddamn 12-hour time period? That's 3 hours, yo. Talk about a pre-siesta. Why do you even bother getting out of bed? Like, why even bother getting out of bed, you guys? I heard the kids that morning, yes, says Maleyha. Daniel was sleeping beside me the entire time from 6:18 to around 9:40 when I woke up. Well, what about before all that time? What did you have for supper the night before? What did you have for midnight snacks? Did you wake up and go pee? You had to have woken up at some point to determine the kids weren't well enough, or did you make that determination days before, hours before? I wonder. When I woke him up because I no longer heard them in the bedroom, I thought they were just outside. I thought they were outside, and now he's saying that you woke him up because you didn't hear them in the bedroom. But you told us in the interview in front of the entire nation, world, Maleyha, that you heard wake him up because you didn't hear them in the bedroom anymore. Oh, see, the contradictions here, man. There is the best estimate I can give at the moment because I was in and out of dozing off that morning. What's keeping you in bed, I wonder? Like, who the hell sits there, lays in, has absolutely nothing to do but doze in and out of sleep, especially when you have children? Absolutely nobody. Don't even buy that story for a second. You know, it's really rare that you even hear that as an excuse. At some point, that's not going to fly. Like, that's not going to be acceptable for investigators, even though that they may be applying the peace method here. They're not going to be liking that in the coffee room. That would never, ever sit well with me. Like, it makes no sense. It's just covering you in that moment so you don't have, or you have a plausible deniability in that sense. Not that it's acceptable, but you're trying to create that from the guilty party's perspective, from the suspect's perspective. So that's Maleyha providing her timeline for the morning of May 2nd, 2025, stating that she heard the children, was dozing off, and woke Daniel at 9:40 a.m. Wait just a cotton-picking minute. Where's Nietzsche's true crime when you need her? Hold on. There's Daphne. But I need the particular video. Where's Nietzsche's? I know where it is. You can probably find it somewhere else. Oh, is it Nietzsche's True Crime? It's something else. Yeah, it's Nietzsche's True Crime. Silly. Hold on. We're going to do one better because I want to put this side by side. Wrong video. She's got the one leading. Is it? Let's go 5 days ago. It's got to be this one. There it is.
They happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no. And we get up instantly. We're looking at. You hear the kids? And he says, no. Him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, do you hear the kids? And he says, no. And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I need. And they happen to just get out that sliding door and we can't hear it when it opens.
So she almost tells it in reverse, and it's so disorganized, isn't it? Like it's not structured in a chronological order. But she says everything in that circumstance, even adds you the justification, and she's lying to you right there. Well, obviously, you're contradicting yourself when the kids are no longer around and you're wanting everybody to buy the fact that they just themselves up and walked out the door that you can't hear, and it's back on the victims again. It's back onto the kids. You just told Sonny something completely different. Tony, AB, when you have children, you hear everything. BS about that damn door. Sick of hearing it. Absolutely. This door is just something to focus on. Okay, it's their portal where they meet the public and the outside narrative. In the same place they put blame right onto the victims in all of this. No, was the problem actually the kids opening up the door and walking out? No, the problem was the parents weren't fucking supervising them at that point in time. Like, why is the entire conversation about what the kids did in that circumstance? You wanted to make for hours on end, and during that time, they just walked out the door never to be seen again. It's all about putting blame back on those kids in the circumstance, no matter what it is. But why we looked at this, let me read this statement to you again. The statement on timeline and hearing the children. This is Maleyha's statements. This is not from this particular show, but from conversations with Sonny or somebody. I heard the kids that morning, yes. Daniel was sleeping beside me the entire time from 6:18 to around 9:40. 9:40. That's going to fucking haunt them. That's going to bury them. Bullshit. Because that's saying 9:40 is 20 minutes thereabouts before they called the RCMP. So 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes, you just had the instinct to call the police and report your own children missing. Can you believe this bullshit? That's cockamamie. I heard the kids that morning. Yes, Daniel was sleeping beside me the entire time from 6:18 to around 20 minutes before we called the RCMP and reported our kids missing. When I woke him up, because I no longer heard them in the bedroom. What? So What about hearing the kids outside and hearing the kids playing and all of this nonsense? There's all kinds of weird things going on with this retelling of the events. That is the best estimate I could give at the moment because I was in and out dozing off that morning. I then called police at 10:01 a.m. Meth minutes, Mr. Hemi, that's a good one. Oh, man. Yeah, if that sliding door was only locked, if it only had like a stick in it so it wouldn't slide at night. If only you people were... Hey, Joe. This is probably worse, Joe, because there's 2 children involved, and I don't like to compare them necessarily, but we have another scenario, yes, where the kids cannot be found, nobody can find them, presumed dead, and the last people to see them alive are acting funny. But he says it was him, Dippy says, who saw Lily pop her head in and out 3 times that morning. So he says, if she is popping her head in and out, get TF out of bed. Hello? Yeah. Yeah. What was it about? Like, at what point... that's disheartening because it's really offering up the bare minimum of criminal neglect causing death. So what is it at this point when they're so openly offering up those particular otherwise questionable circumstances, which on their own are probably false? Or partially true? Well, they knew that they were home because by the time that they got home, or by the time the RCMP came, that they were at that house. So we know that actually was a thing. Oh, it just makes normal. Everybody who has a sliding door, which is probably the majority of people, all right, whether you live in an apartment, a complex, a house with a deck, everybody except me, I don't actually have one here, but I do at the cottage. Had one at the cottage. They all make sounds. They all make rumbling sounds. But it's just an opportunity for the suspects here to put blame on an inanimate object for being pivotal in these children's disappearance. Like, why to them does this door matter when you heard the kids inside playing? They were still unsupervised, but you weren't paying attention in that sense. But it makes you wonder about these two because they're so openly willing to admit negligence causing death in this scenario. And it's far worse than that, you can guarantee. And not just that, why are you going to follow up? Well, this is what they admit to. We know it probably didn't happen like that. It certainly didn't happen like that. They could have been in bed, but we're not really interested in that sort of timeline that's being presented to us because they're leaving it up to a 20-minute window that those kids left. They should have been found right away. So you're telling me within 20 minutes, somebody came in, picked them up, and took them somewhere. Now he's introducing, it's probably somebody that knows the family. Well, claiming that it's not him, but it could be possible that it's somebody who knows the family. He's already posturing at this point ahead of the curve in that sense, positioning himself. Lori Green, they've got to say the kids were there that morning, but I don't think the kids were there. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. They could have been taken out late that night before, absolutely, in the part of the timeline that he doesn't want to talk about. He certainly doesn't have a whole lot to say about the circumstances and the last time he was out spending a good time with these kids in public when he was near that shopping mall on CCTV. I'm interested in that point, the hours leading up to that point, and the hours after that point. It shouldn't be very difficult, but something tells me that they probably told the RCMP that they were all in bed sleeping at 7 p.m. Yes. Hold on. At 7 p.m. the night before. 1 second. It's snack time. Oh, I'm back. I was rudely interrupted by hungry kids. You see what I mean? Kids are always bugging you to have something to eat. They're always bugging you for something, especially when you get busy like that. That's a normal kid thing, isn't it? And they know exactly when to get you because there's no possible way that I'm going to, tell her no in front of a whole group of individuals that I'm preoccupied with. She's learned that. Now's a good time to hit dad up for, all kinds of snacks at any one time. I have to draw the line sometimes, though. Fucking popsicles and lemonade. Actually, it was good. I get this lemonade from the store. What is it, Nimchi? It's supposed to be this Indian lemonade. It's like an Indian lemonade with lime. So it's limeade and lemonade all together in one. And it has other spices in it as well. And when you first have it, it tastes so different than lemonade, but it has such a tart bite to it. I'm a big fan of it right now. Nimchi, something like that. Has a picture of like this elephant on it. It's really good. Oh my God. President's Choice makes it. It's in your grocery stores in Canada. So good. So that's our thing right now. And it's actual real lemonade. It's not like sugar, bullshit flavored anything. It's the real thing, baby. Now, yeah, Teresa, your grandkids are always in the fridge. You're a good grandma. Even your older children, when they visit, what about Jack and Lily? No breakfast, nothing? Oh, maybe they're free-range kids around the house. That's the way that they want to present them as. I count the calories that go in. It's not that I really care too much, but I still count them. We still abuse the hell out of it. Like, how many calories do we need in a day? Like yesterday, for example. My daughter has such an appetite. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, it's got to be an issue at some point because, well, I get it. Like, I mean, it's so pleasurable. To her, when sensory, like flavor and taste and things like that, especially hamburgers at a barbecue, she wolfed them down. It's like, dude, like I get so full on just a certain portion. I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but my daughter just destroyed me like she's got like a tapeworm or something. I thought it was fantastic, but even she was pushing the limit. She was certainly full afterwards, but still had room for all kinds of dessert. It's ridiculous. Maybe I've like developed a sort of a eating disorder, probably. Drippy, you're muted. Is it? Oh no. Maleyha, AB already said a lot of step-parents can't be trusted. Yeah, I got into that whole thing yesterday. You can go to my community page about, what they call the Cinderella effect in psychology when it comes to, coming to conclusions in a psychological, scientific environment about why step-parents mistreat and are represented in such a way in these statistics. It was interesting. So what I came to with all of that is that I think I probably am going with, because of a drug-induced psychosis and in a of psychopathic, like a psychopathic mindset, Daniel did something to the kids, but he was already, maybe I should get into that, but there's more going on with probably Maleyha's kids in that sense than just physical abuse. That's where my suspicions extend to, but I think it was probably done with his own hand in that sense. Not like I'm trying to play Clue or anything, but I think it was a violent, like I think he lashed out in a state of psychopathy, in a drug-induced psychosis, which was a common thing in that household, I would expect. I keep losing my volume. Oh, shit. Hold on. Well, I do keep muting out a few times. Then I come back. Is that what you mean? Hopefully I'm not, because I see it bouncing around up here. It looks okay. Maybe it is. Well, I see it going red, though. Just refresh your screens, maybe. You think you're a good step-parent, Janie? How do we know that, though? How do we know that you're not one of the statistics like Daniel? We'll give you the benefit of the doubt here. Whereas Truth says you think MBM lashed out. Just in your opinion? Well, how is that, though? You have to explain it, though. It is buffering, Drippy. I don't see any warnings. If it's buffering, check your connection. Let me go see here. Oh, maybe it is. Okay, it is. I probably know what it is. It's my daughter on the iPad. I bet you it's the iPad. When my daughter starts using the iPad, sometimes, I wonder if there's anything else though, sucking up my network connection. So it's intermittent. It says it's excellent. Then the odd time something comes up. Just know that it's my daughter in that sense. I'm sorry. Sometimes she's on it. Sometimes she's not in that sense. Hold on. Let me go. Should I go? I'll see if it remains a problem. Last night it wasn't so much of a problem. She was on it. Hold on. I should be able just to pop a menu up and disconnect it while I'm online. I'm not sure how exactly to do that. I have to put up my network connections. Hold on, you know what I'll do? Just let me get a little bit more resource free there. We'll see how that goes. Okay. I'll keep an eye out for it. Yeah, I now that I've got it down, Brippy, it's probably just going to be a couple times intermittently. I apologize. The good news is we know why. That's the good news. We know why. But we have to compromise. Because usually when I'm live streaming charities at school or there's something else going on, it's not as often when we're both doing the same thing together in that sense. Lori Green's asking, were the kids noisy or nosy? Noisy the night before when Daniel went into the room. Something happened. Well, we'd have to explore the reasons why they were the conflict. In my opinion, you have to explore the actual conflicts that were surrounding them. We know about them, but we don't seem to want to know too much about them at this point. It seemed to me that the more that you knew about the underlying conflicts within the family and what was going on, say, back in December, when Wade and his wife, Cindy, were there ready to get her out of that situation, and the children as well, presumably. I think that would be fantastic. What's going on, Randy? You got to leave, brother? Thanks for being in here. You come back and fill it up. We're not talking about anything too important today. Maybe your stepkids are grown up. Listen, some people are just made to be parents. Some women are just such great mothers, it comes naturally. Some people have a harder time. Some people had to learn. I didn't come natural for me. I was once told that I was a bad parent. You know what? I probably was at that point in time. Hey, Lindy. I probably was. I would be, even though it was said in with malicious intent. But in my mind, there's really, as long as you want to be there and be a parent, you can always learn, and there's always learning to be done, and we're always learning. But you have to want to do it in the first place. As soon as you start introducing all of these substances, especially the ones that are named in this particular case, you start to get a good understanding with what their lifestyle was probably about, and it had everything to do with zoning out and tweaking out in that sense, away from everybody else, more than not. The dissociatives. So there's probably a really ambiguous role with both of the parents, I would expect. Do you understand what I mean with that? So if these parents don't have a real cut and dry exact role within their family sect, they just don't do anything. They don't live up to their partner's expectations because they never had a cut and dry role in the first place. Like, it's not easy for people to come in and fill the obligations or the expectations of what the parent would have otherwise thought was going to happen. Or it's never quite right. That would contribute to a lot of the... I think so. It doesn't sound like it. Yeah, you're that kind of mama? Lori Green, why did Daniel say his throat hurt with screaming their name? Were the kids screaming and playing in the room that night? He could have grabbed them by the throat? Well, Lori, possibly. I mean, you can overthink these scenarios too. Not that that's what you're doing. You can overthink this statement analysis thing too, because it's coming from a person that's putting all of your eggs in one basket. You don't really know. You could figure that out over time and look back on it and take a measurement. I mean, it's possible. I mean, there has to be some sort of answer. Something happened. David, you were on the Fifth Estate twice because of it, and you're in the court documents. I know more than most here about abuse, so please do not judge. What the hell was going on there? So hold on, let me pull this back up again. So that statement we just went through with Maleyha's is... What would we say about that simply? We just call it, it resembles a fabricated, rehearsed story, probably as though she was put up to it by Daniel. The context of it was Maleyha provides her timeline for the morning of May 2nd, 2025, again, in a different way, stating she heard the children, was dozing off, and woke Daniel at 9:40 when she no longer heard them. She called the police at 10:01 a.m. That's how you look after your kids just dozing in and out of sleep. Like, that's just so questionable in a situation where your kids go missing. Justin vehemently rejects this. Our buddy Justin at Clutch Them Pearls, calling it implausible and questioning why she didn't check on the children herself. He mocks the idea of waking someone because you don't hear kids, suggesting it's an excuse. And she's full of them, wasn't it? She wasn't even done telling you what was supposedly happening, and she was offering up all kinds of excuses for what it was she's just about to tell you. Like beforehand, in the moment. Yeah, it's questionable, honey baby. This is one of the most detailed timelines Maleyha provides in that transcript I'm speaking, making it a pivotal statement. Oh, interesting. It places her and Daniel in the trailer asleep or semi-asleep during the critical period when the children disappeared, allegedly. They were made to disappear, in my opinion. The 9:40 a.m. wake-up and the 10:01 a.m. police call suggest a narrow window for the children's disappearance that's going to work against you in the court of law, kids, which Justin finds unbelievable, arguing it's unlikely for children to vanish without a trace in such a short amount of time. Absolutely. And for the police to so quickly rule out all of these other possibilities at that moment in time says so much. Even in the Summer Wells case, okay, it was so questionable that the TBI issued an Amber Alert. It didn't meet the criteria. They did it out of courtesy, which is a mistake, and it gives people the wrong idea in the long run. Not that it's necessarily to the investigation important what it is that we out here think. That doesn't matter to them, but I'm just saying. That's how it should be, though. Where's truth for two children to go missing in that circumstance as well? Even as soon as yesterday, as soon as I heard it, Daniel all of a sudden kind of mentioning and pushing a new, different, alternative, adapted narrative, now volunteering up that it could possibly be somebody he feels close to the family, that knows the family, but not him. Not him. No, not him. Sure. Justin was arguing it was unlikely for children to vanish without a trace in such a short amount of time. The statement conflicts with other accounts. For example, Janie's claim of seeing Maleyha outside, as later referenced. Now, I wonder why she didn't mention anything about Janie in her initial statement. She mentioned her Daniel, her partner. You didn't want to mention seeing Janie when Janie came out? We just couldn't believe it. Those big evil woods just came and swallowed those kids right up. Let's see. The quote from Maleyha. In the morning, Jack and Lily got out a couple times, but I would always get a call from Janie saying the kids were outside. They were just talking about excuses and things like this. There's another example, right? So an answer in your context really is always posing some sort of ridiculous question as an answer. Was a diversionary tactic in the moment at any one time. It's not looking very good for these two. Oh, they'd be too young for that at this point, Teresa. They're just that age. They're 4 and 6, right? She would just be getting into that age of going to camp and activities like this. Lori Green says, in the police radio, the officer told the other officer to keep Maleyha at home in case the kids were hiding. Yeah, it's just normal procedure in that sense at that point, in that time, I think, right? Janie gave a different account than Durwood. That was supposed to be Janie's account of when she found out the kids went missing in the driveway. Yeah, there's a whole bullshit account of that. We already went through that, right, Derpy? That doesn't seem to be so popular anymore. They don't want to talk about why that was wrong back then, do they? Why? I wonder. Where's Durwood now? Although he was popping his head up the other day. Is he still saying the same things? 1,000% sure, he's ironclad. Yeah, we heard them playing outside, but we weren't aware of it. What a crock of bullshit, says Amanda. That's true. Maleyha, how can you hear them outside and not be aware of it at the same time? Because she wants you to accept that she was drifting in and out of sleep, and it's just, such a plausible excuse. Christine, are you talking about that case a couple of years ago in Australia where that weird dude stole the kid out of the tent while the parents were sleeping? And somehow you're supposed to compare that to this situation and how we're unreasonably blaming the two guilty parents in this circumstance? No, I don't need to outside compare any fucking thing to rationalize how suspect these two parents look in this particular circumstance. They can provide all of the evidence that points to some sort of stranger abduction. But as per right now, there's no evidence that leads anybody to believe that. In fact, you don't have to go any further than the statements. It's just people out there wanting to believe everything that they fucking hear in that sense. No, that's not what you said? Okay. So lay off. You're trolling? That's not what you meant? Okay. So that's not what you meant, everybody. But yeah, I think I'm vaguely familiar about it. That ship has sailed in that sense, though, when it comes to bringing any harm to their kids. I'm completely, at this point in time, so closed off to that possibility, it would be impossible at this point to convince me of anything else. I mean, not saying it's not possible, but I'm just exaggerating, of course. I apologize for taking it the wrong way. I demand you accept my apology right now. Daniel's timeline hasn't changed in your opinion? What is his timeline? I wonder if there's a spot where I can really get a detail of that. I think that he sticks to that what's referred to, or he referred to as the golden standard, which is Janie's timeline. I don't know who made that reference. Maybe it's a Sunny reference. Yeah, you're on the right track. You're ruling out abduction. You're ruling out the kids went into the woods. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you think critically? In your opinion, the kids were taken... In your opinion, if the kids were taken, they were taken by somebody they knew. I would think any force getting into a car would set Janie's dog off. It would be too risky for someone to abduct two children. Yeah. 2 of them? The hell would you want with 2 of them in the first place? What is Daniel's timelines? They all differ from each other's. That's true. I think Rad Mill is just saying that it hasn't changed in that sense. It's not that whether it or not it's true. It's just maybe it hasn't changed. I don't know. I can't say that that's so because I haven't really experienced him talking about his timeline. He hasn't. He's spoken about the situation loosely, but he doesn't speak on the actual timeline from the point at which the kids were last seen alive. At at that point, you're out of control. You should be taking it where people lead in that sense, not so set. But I'm not trying to give him advice on what he should be doing. That's why I'm hesitating. I don't want to give him advice. If a car came into the driveway, that dog would be barking. And there would be evidence of it. That's what I'm... Well, it gets complicated, doesn't it? It gets complicated when there's two kids presumably dead in this circumstance. It's hard not to... The only thing that's really setting my mind a certain way is the fact that we know, and it's been admitted, that there were these particular substances used. So just knowing what comes along with that, and they admitted to this particular substance and the abuse of it for the past 2 years and beyond. I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that Daniel, in somewhere in their conflict, wanted to bring harm towards these particular kids. Maybe it was just an extension of Maleyha herself and the physical abuse that he was already bestowing upon her in these conflicts that they had. There's a certain level of control that you can see that Daniel loves, because he loves to control the narrative. I would expect that he loves to control his women at home just the same way. And we know that he was doing so with those particular substances, or we're suspicious of it at this point, but we have all kinds of circumstantial evidence suggesting that. So did the kids become an extension of Maleyha and Daniel's... Oh, there goes my chat. Hopefully I'm still there. Oh my God. Stop giving me problems. Maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe I've got too many things open. Yeah, just a little buffer. Good. It's not bringing me up any alarms, so it's just intermittent. I'd have to think that was my network connection. That's okay. I'm just thinking too much about it. So, let me see here. Where is this? So the Cinderella effect, evolutionary psychology framework, the Cinderella effect proposed by Daly and Wilson, 1988A and 1988B, is a theory rooted in evolutionary psychology that posits step-parents are more likely to neglect, abuse, or unalive non-biological children due to a lack of genetic investment. The term draws from the fairy tale Cinderella, where a stepmother mistreats her stepdaughter, reflecting a pattern observed in real-world data. Key aspects include evolutionary basis, parental investment theory. Biological parents have an evolutionary incentive to invest resources, which are time, care, and protection, for stepchildren. Resource competition. Stepchildren may be perceived as competing for resources, for example, time, money, and attention, especially if the step-parent has biological children. This can escalate to neglect or violence in high-stress environments, says Daly Wilson in 1994 study. So empirical evidence, homicide rates, Daly and Wilson studies found stepchildren in Canada from 1974 to 83 and in Detroit, 1972, were 70 to 100 times more likely to be unalived by a step-parent than by two biological parents. Stepfathers were particularly overrepresented in lethal cases. Stepfathers, meaning live-in boyfriends as well, were particularly overrepresented in lethal cases. Abuse and neglect. Stepchildren face a 5-fold higher risk of abuse compared to biological children. Non-lethal neglect, such as emotional distancing, is also more common in step families. The age vulnerability. Very young children, example under 6, are at higher risk due to their dependencies or their dependence and inability to defend themselves. Terminatal, 2004, relevant to Jack, who's 4, and Lily, 6, Sullivan. Mechanisms of targeting physical abuse. Step-parents, especially stepfathers, may use physical discipline to assert control, escalating to abuse in stressful or dysfunctional households. That's 1994. Step-parents may provide less emotional or maternal support, prioritizing biological children or personal interests. In extreme cases, domestic conflicts or psychological issues, example, personality disorders or substance abuse, lead to filicide, as noted in Bourgeot and Gagne, 2005. So talking a little bit around the Cinderella effect, which is going to be, you would have to think, applicable at some point in time here, because what got me caught up yesterday was trying to figure out in my mind and come to determination whether or not I felt that this was, filicide, which is just one child, or if it was familicide, where it's really a situation where he's taking out more than one sibling to do with it than we would like to think. I don't know, though. The only safe place was school, Teresa. That's true. That's why Jack and Lily loved school, exactly. Before we found out about Maleyha's behavior with Patty, Drippy's bringing up, Daniel had like an 80% chance to having done something to kids, with M being low risk. And in stealing money from Patty, M's risk factors go up. It's a pattern of behavior that's, well, what if Wade said is factual, and by all accounts it is, we would have to take it into consideration. The RCMP would have to confirm it, of course. It just suggests that she was in that cycle of addiction as well, and her family well knew it. So they all but said she married her drug dealer. That's what the way Wayne portrayed it. Like I'm saying it in a more condensed, concise manner, in my opinion. Like they just explained all of the struggles and some of the more low points of the last little while with her in this. I would have to expect in a time where she's being difficult, like she is in and out of the family unit from their perspective, and she's out of control. It's because of the substances that she's using. I don't believe for a second that she's not. Yeah, Drippy. M stealing money from Patty is criminal behavior, and it adds to the risk factors for being involved. Absolutely. That's a great point. You're right. That's what you're trying to say. I get it. I get it. Well, statistics suggest an elevated risk, David says. Individual circumstances vary greatly. The presence of a step-parent does not mean harm will occur. No, exactly. There's plenty of good step-parents out there. I know. Giving step-parents a bad name. Yeah, that's not the intent. We're just... What they're looking at is when, in cases where there has been filicide, and then within that study, how many of those are step parents. And it's always, no matter what study it is, there's upwards of like 40% of the individuals that ended up being guilty were step parents. And unproportionate amount. A disproportionate amount, I think they called it. That's a better way to say it. A way to step up for step parents there, David. His brain must be picked. If he's been on drugs for over 14 years. What do you mean, Amanda? How do you know that to be true? I don't know about that. I don't know where you're getting that from. No, she said at least 2 years in that sense. It's been a problem. Like the day, she says the day before she went to be induced to have this guy's baby. Which is an interesting, for her to say. She's admitting to it essentially. But she's dampening it down. Distancing herself from being involved in that. What do you think got them together in the first place? His good looks? You wonder how D&M's lives as children were growing up in that sense? Well, it's probably a factor. But again, I think this being a rare instance, like it's a rare instance, and we have to involve... I remember there was a time in this case where I thought that we didn't have to involve, the rugs yet. Now you have to take them into consideration and the effect on the family. You know what's up, Queez. Do you think it's more like 80%? Well, I can quote you right now. Maybe I'm wrong. No. Those are different. Drippy. Be careful. It's easy to get mixed up. It's higher than I mentioned, probably, but... Well, yeah, that's just quoting. What you're doing is quoting just a different... But you're part of it. You're probably reading right off of it, and I'm not looking at it. I thought you were going to do that. I'll get myself caught up. Hold on. Let me see. I got to finish this. I got to stay on track. I digress. What else stuck out for me from here? On here. Talking about the app called School Messenger. Then she says she went to the blood work to get to Dollarama. Blood work in Dollarama. Quote, yes, he's a rug addict. I found out he was doing rugs the night before I was going to be induced with Meadow. He was not making or selling that I know of when I met him. I had no idea of his rug habit. Yes, Daniel is a narcissist and is very controlling, unfortunately. So this is Maleyha confirming that Daniel's rug addiction discovered before Meadow's birth. But even if you don't believe her in the intricate details, think about what she's admitting to here in this circumstance with 2 kids missing. There's a slice of truth to this in the fact that they're addicts. Which, I mean... It's better that it's out in the open so you can get some sort of help. But she's probably in such a state of denial and she's manipulating right to this current point in time. Maleyha confirms Daniel's rug addiction discovered before Meadow's birth and describes him as a narcissist and controlling. She denies knowledge of him making or selling it. Justin, my friend Justin, didn't believe that at all. Actually, he does believe her on that, lending credence to her claims about Daniel's character. I don't know why he would say that. Maybe that's where we disagree. I would think that Wade has more of a key on what's going on than Justin's opinion at this point in time. That's all I'm saying. He later references a physical altercation, but I've been wrong, denied by Maleyha. So that statement significantly shifts focus to Daniel's character, portraying him as unreliable and potentially abusive. Maleyha's acknowledgement of his rug use and controlling nature supports allegations of a dysfunctional household, which could be relevant to the children's disappearance. Oh, I think that it's relevant to the children's disappearance. Her denial of rug manufacturing limits the scope of his criminality but doesn't absolve him. Justin's belief in this statement contrasts with his distrusts of her timeline, suggesting he finds her accusations against Daniel plausible. This statement strengthens the case against Daniel but complicates Maleyha's role. That's just his opinion. Don't worry about what that says. But it's still unclear. Like, I mean, it's hard. You don't want to sit here and say what's right and wrong because it's all unclear at this point in time. No, Belinda did not control me, says Maleyha. However, she did know her son Cody was cheating on me with multiple women and never told me. Oh, well, la-di-da. How do you know that? Look at her just wanting to point blame on Belinda for whatever. Bring her into any sort of drama to get some sort of revenge in a public setting just to talk smack about her. That's Maleyha clarifying that Belinda didn't control her but withheld information about Cody, which is the children's biological father. Him cheating. Let me see. Justin, of course, stood up for Belinda, arguing it's not a mother-in-law's role to intervene in a relationship. Notes Belinda supported Maleyha's decision to leave Cody. You get the hell on down the road, bitch. This statement is... I'm going to go on to the next one. As far as she let on, she never had a problem with them. She did treat them a bit different than her grandchildren. I was baffled when Maleyha discusses Janie's attitude towards Jack and Lily, noting she treated them differently from her own grandchildren and found them annoying. Justin agreed with that, calling Janie's words bullshit and questioning her lack of photos with the children, implying disinterest. The statement casts Janie in a negative light. It suggests that she was not invested in Jack and Lily's well-being. Well, what about that pool that she was going to put in? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. The claim that Jamie found them annoying supports the narrative of a neglectful environment, as it implies Janie may not have been vigilant. Combined with Maleyha's earlier claim about Janie's calls, it raises questions about why Janie didn't alert Maleyha on the day of her disappearance. God damn it, Janie, what did you do? This statement indirectly supports Justin's suspicions of Janie's role, but doesn't directly address the timeline. Yeah, Teresa, at the end of the day, she's still protecting. There's a... if you're, let's say you're tied to the underworld in that sense and you're into the lifestyle, there's still a lot of street credit that you need to present in that sense. So you're going to protect the people that you're in crime with more times than not on the surface. Remember, part of proving this no body prosecution is having to prove to that jury that they did indeed lie. It could be a possibility. I strongly believe that they're into that lifestyle and they're just, denying it. What else are you going to do in this point? It's not for the criminal conviction that you want to know the truth. It's for the impact on the family environment and just what contributed to the dysfunctionality of the home. Yeah, Osprey, you got it right. And they are. It's easier for the two guilty parties to play, back and forth, especially with the public or even the RCMP when they need to. Putting blame as part of the guise of not having any idea as to what happened, but keeping themselves open to the possibility of the other person. Like Maleyha did that right away in mentioning how suspicious she thought Daniel was acting in that particular day. And then, vice versa, Daniel said endless shit about Maleyha and how guilty she looked, up to the point of really pushing a theory that, what Durwood was walking around mentioning, and he was right there championing that narrative. First, he started saying it's just a theory, and then he was really correcting people as to, as to the particular story. Oh, he was just doing that to put pressure on Maleyha, he says. I don't think so. That's just you lying. I get that feeling too, Lindy, about Janie. Remember Janie said to the police she ain't got any photos of Lily and Jack. She doesn't need them. They live there. Yeah. I understand. There's people that just don't take pictures like that. In this circumstance, what I think that's suspicious, personally. Although it's not always suspicious. There's plenty of boomers that don't take pictures on their phones. Don't do that sort of, selfie lifestyle thing. But when it comes to this circumstance, and the fact that she says she doesn't need any pictures, they already live there in that sense, that's something that you would say about a person you didn't like very much. I don't need a picture of that asshole. I work with them every day, It's just the way it's framed that makes it look so questionable. But I don't think that she was a very, be the type to outwardly express her emotions to the people that she should be closest with. She's probably an iron crotch. I'm not sure what you're asking, Ellie New. You say knock knock. Why did Daniel mention that the kid's light switch is right next to the door? Probably because every kid's light switch is right next to the door. Because he wants you to envision that he didn't go inside the bedroom. Why does he need everyone to think that? Yeah, I don't know. Like, the quick answer to you on all of that shit is, why are you falling for the same old bullshit again? I mean, we're here to talk about the case and what Daniel said, right? I mean, I get there's kind of a contradiction to it all, but your answer is usually going to be, who the fuck cares? Because he's offering up all kinds of useless information from the perspective of a suspect. So it's not like he's playing, a video game, leaving you purposeful clues all along the way for you to make a decision over. Anything that's going to, any conversation that feeds back into his false narrative is going to be welcome to him, in my opinion. Anything that builds up people's opinions and considerations and get them lost in information that they themselves presented, which has nothing to do with the reality of what happened to Jack and Lily. One moment, please. Yeah, monkey mind. Daniel's obsessed with Pokemon, is he? All day long, even in restaurants and supermarkets. Well, it's a lot of hand washing. She was abused in the previous relationship and didn't heal from them. I think, Julia, they were mentioning that in the beginning of the case, her own trauma and things like this. But it's hard to believe, again, it's hard to take anything that we're given seriously. Yeah, you're really putting yourself in her shoes in that sense, Layla. You'd be disappointed if your son cheated on his wife and I couldn't see my grandkids and some other people moved in. Well, it's not an ideal situation. It's not like a fairy tale scenario by any means. But I think she was careful to not, early on, Belinda being careful not to suggest a whole lot. But she since came out with some pretty interesting statements in regards to what Maleyha was saying at any one time. Tammy, Daniel has said many times that they slept in their clothes, but also Jack was wearing a pull-up. Both cannot be true. Jack would need to be toileting properly in order to go to school. No, he could be going in a pull-up. So 4, he's probably in junior kindergarten, right? Was he in junior kindergarten or is he home all day? Well, Jack was obviously at school if they were reporting him coming in with bruises. He would have probably been in JK, which is junior kindergarten. Yeah, of course they can, Mom Angels. Mine did. I went through issues at that age. At Jack's age, I went through issues as well. We finally got it sorted out. In a way. Kind of. My daughter doesn't need pull-ups anymore by any means. But it's never a pristine process in that sense. Because it's not so much teaching them what they have to do, it's teaching, I should say children with disabilities, or child with a disability. We don't know if Jack's disability was legit or anybody actually wanted to, or sat down and spent the time and helped him learn in that sense. We don't know that. It could be either or. You had babies coming in. Hold on, where did I put that? Osprey says, I had babies coming in the morning with the same diaper on. We put them before they left in the afternoon. They even got free diapers. Oh, are you talking about from school? I had to send all the diapers for my daughter. Not for a long, long time, though. But that being said as well, I mean, there's other reasons that Jack could have been struggling with his toileting, and that would have been coming from being under stress, some of the mistreatment at the house that was, he was being picked on in that circumstance, according to Maleyha's statements. So what was really going on is my question. If she's minimizing it at bare minimum, that he was a control freak and she was picking on Jack, what are they really hiding? Belinda said she didn't interfere. Lori Green, Cody and Maleyha's relationship. Oh, you mean in? But she knows that's why there was no problem Maleyha getting sole custody. Well, what was he going to do? How was he going to raise the kids on his own as a single parent? That was highly unlikely. What was he going to do in that circumstance? The best he was going to get is an agreement. If the mother didn't want an agreement, it would have cost him more money to fight it in court. You know those situations. But he was willing to walk away at that point in time. It left his children isolated and away from a person who has, genetic investment in that child. To utilize a new term we learned today. Amanda Graham, I won't even read that. If your bladder isn't as strong as it used to be, I think mine's gotten smaller. Maybe I'm just not drinking enough water. I used to be able to urinate for all kinds of time, but I also used to drink beer and things like that. So ever since I stopped drinking beer, I don't pee as much anymore, I guess. They were both delayed. Look at the pics of Lily still using a pacifier, Bonnie. She has an oral in that sense. Yeah, what age is she still using a pacifier at? That wouldn't be a determining factor for me to think that she's delayed, but I guess to some people, if you're going by the book 100%, I guess, you could consider that. There's lots of kids that can't get rid of that pacifier. You need a way to get rid of it. It's been so long since I thought about that. He has a mother and sister. Yeah, Maleyha was a single parent, Lori. When was Lori? When was she a single parent? You mean with Cody? When was she ever a single parent in that sense? Do we actually know that? See, the way that I have it in my mind is she was with Cody. Then she wasn't with Cody. She was just living at home with her mom. That doesn't mean she's a single parent. She's still being supported in that sense. I guess it all depends on what you're defining it as. But she's never been in that situation for very long. The children aren't even that old. This is a relatively young mother. It's a young mother with very young kids. I don't think that she was ever suited to be a mother in this circumstance. So 2 years ago, her and Cody went through this when the kids were 24 months and 4 years old, essentially, around that time. They're barely babies. They're just babies. She probably started getting into trouble when the kids started going to school, in that sense, because of her lifestyle. Listen, just because Daniel is high AF all the fucking time and you want to blame it all on him. First of all, if you weren't indulging with this asshole, you wouldn't be around very long. All right? Because a sober person and a person who's high on the math don't click in that circumstance very well. Okay? You had to have been using. And it shows on your kids. It would have showed at school in that sense. You're not going to let your kids go away. And you've got Daniel early on talking about how alienated you were from the children. And he had to save the day and do all of this and that for the kids and do the child rearing. Well, the same child rearing, he had to take care of the kids, was his words. I'll just bet you did. Meaning that you took care of them, but it has a double entendre to that meaning. They didn't give a shit how the kids walked out the door in that sense. That's the way that I understand it at this point. I wish it was different. What's too late? What's too late for a soother? Usually you want to get it out of them when they're still a baby. I thought. But some maybe it was her only, her only friend. It was self-soothing that she relied on. That's where the soother comes in. Yeah. The easiest way to get M on board with his rug use is to get her on the rugs using. Well, I'm not questioning her rug use. Like, that would have been a vicious cycle for her. Because there's already talk about depression being involved with her. And at this point, the whole reason that you're caught up in this cycle is because, and you're depressed, is because you're taking the drugs. All right? And you don't see a way out of that. So it feeds back into each other. It's not like she's eating healthy and exercising like she should be. She doesn't even go outside. I should get out and cut the lawn, by the way, now that I mention it, but it'd be too critical on people. You'd like to hear more about what Daniel considered taking care of the kids? Yeah, wouldn't that be interesting, Unique? Unique Rhythm says, I would like to hear more about what Daniel considered taking care of the kids. Did he make their meals, do their laundry, get them ready for school? All right, Daniel, I want you to show us how you fold shirts. How do you fold towels? No, not that way. Yeah, I don't. It's hard to really believe him that he's the one. What does that mean, taking care of the kids? Like, what does that actually mean in this situation? I don't know. You think that he would have been giving some context with that instead of just the sheer claim and the hit and run. You know, that tactic that he just likes to hit you with those statements in your live chat and run in that sense, you've noticed. But again, it's just to talk about the false narrative. He doesn't really want to. There's no real talking on his behalf. What else is he going to do? Deny using substances at this point? Yeah, you're right, Katie. There's too much chaos in that environment. It probably contributed to the depression. Like, you wouldn't believe, oh, no, that's just her. She's got postpartum depression. Meanwhile, the guy hasn't cleaned a fucking lick. The place looks like shit. It doesn't even matter that you're broke. Okay, you can still be happy and technically impoverished. You know, money makes things easier, but it's not the contributor. You know, everybody argues over money, but it's not, it doesn't equate to all of this neglect and harm. There's plenty of poor people who take fantastic care of their kids, right? It's everything else. Like, life at the end of the day is what you make of it. And if you're feeling a little down, go out for a walk, you know, have something to eat. Don't be consuming and ingesting all these illicit substances to steer your moods for your cohabitation for your partner there. That's what it was really all about. This relationship and this control between them and the kids were coming by the wayside. They fell by the wayside. No, you're right, Amanda. She's not looking at all. She wants you to look for her. Remember, the police told her not to look because the kids could return. They could just be hiding. According to Daniel, is Maleyha who fed the kids? I wonder what meals were like around that place. We know that Daniel didn't put their PJs on. Who was in charge of bath time? And we just talked about that. Turn that water off. Stay out of there. None of this nonsense. Come on. No. Out of here. All of a sudden, my sink is turning into like a water wonderland. You have a drink, but you don't need to be spraying water all over the place. What are you looking at me like that for, dude? Have a drink. Just don't take it too far. I don't get why Maleyha being an opiate. I don't get Maleyha being an opiate addict. I don't think she is an opiate addict. I think she She reeks of math user, always on the phone, in her own little tweaker world. Obsessive behavior is a large part of math. Where did I see that? Somebody was playing that the other day. The first interview that Daniel appeared on camera, when he was humming. I don't know where that is. Where would I find that? Was it on Nietzsche's True Crime I saw that? I don't know. What would I search to even find that? Fuck. Lori's, let's be honest here. If your grandkids were missing and the aunts and family were on social media most nights, is that normal when kids are missing? Let's be honest here. If your grandkids were missing and the aunts and family were on social media most nights, is that a normal thing when kids are missing? Probably. You know, I'm going to want to stand up for them. I know what point you're making. I agree with it. You know, it's not just that makes them suspicious. It's the fact that it's the information that they volunteer in that sense, in light of them missing. I'm here telling you the truth. How many times does Janie got to tell you that she's telling you the truth? I'm not here to lie to you, says Janie. She's home all day, consumed by Facebook, Temu, and getting lit. Mr. Heavy. Living like rock stars, but never releasing a record. That's Nova Scotia rock star. Let's see. I'm going to just indulge in a little herbal relief. These parents just make me crazy, KD. You go smoke one for me, too. These poor children weren't loved like they deserve. That's absolutely right. Hold on. Where the hell am I going to find that? That's bothering me now. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to go try to find this. Daniel Martell interview. May. Let me see here. Daniel Martell's interview. What would that be on?
Still holding out hope. I don't know why they didn't find anything from Jack's pull-up to her backpack or any of her belongings at all. They just haven't found.
Oh, you can hear it right there. It's not even the one I'm looking at, but you can hear it right there. Do you hear how psychologically amped up, like his brain is so excited, like induced? You're sneaking up on me. It's like a motor in inducing the windings with electricity. You can hear it, and he's got these big breaths in an inappropriate placement in his speech. Yeah, that's a direct effect of somebody who's humming on the Tina. Let's listen.
Found anything? Still holding out hope. I don't know why they didn't find anything from Jack's pull-up to her backpack or any of her belongings at all. They just haven't found anything.
This guy's got tweaker written all over him. I don't find it. Anything in the moment to make it look like he's got no idea as to what's going on, right?
Since the kids went missing, their stepfather says he's hardly had any contact with their mother. She took their 1-year-old to stay with her mother after a fight between the families broke out. He says people accuse him of being involved in the children's disappearance. When contacted, the mother and her family only told CBC News police advised them not to speak to media.
I'm absolutely exhausted at this point after going through 6 days of virtual hell. It's absolutely crazy.
Now, I wonder why he would be going through hell in that circumstance. Because he's shit in his pants because he just murdered 2 children and buried the bodies? And why is he so focused on his own feelings in the circumstance? If you were truly concerned about the kids, your only primary focus in that moment, you're taking up precious airtime, you would be mentioning the children. But you want to express exactly how the past few days have been absolute hell for you in this circumstance? Come on.
So I'm just fighting for Lily and Jack.
Since the kids went missing, their stepfather says he's hardly had any contact with their mother. She took their 1-year-old to stay with her mother after a fight between the families broke out. He says people accuse him of being
another little thing that sticks out to me as well, like, they just have random photos of their toys strewn about like any old place. Like, you don't teach the kids to go put their toys back when they're done playing with them. You don't have little ports. It's not, an organized environment that would, if they're just all over the place, dirty as all hell. You wouldn't even want to pick them up, like, after they've been out there for a certain amount of time. Like, what the fuck is going on? That's disgusting. So you're ruining all of this stuff. That doesn't tell me that you care about the kids or their particular things.
Involved in the children's disappearance. When contacted, the mother and her family only told CBC News police advised them not to speak to media.
I'm absolutely exhausted at this point after going through 6 days of virtual hell. It's absolutely crazy. So I'm just fighting for Lily and Jack.
Since the kids went missing, their stepfather says he's hardly
going through 6 days.
What's he doing fighting for Lily and Jack? Exactly what are you doing to fight for Lily and Jack in that point in time? You're not searching, you're not looking. You're fighting for Lily and Jack. Like, you're introducing these sort of vague references. But what does it really actually mean? Nothing. He was giggling while talking Moonlight Magic. Maybe he picked it up a little bit, but I think it wasn't actually that he found anything funny. He's got a whole secondary thing going on up there, and he's high as he's high. You can hear it in his voice. The cadence.
When I see something like this,
Still holding out hope. I don't know why they didn't find anything.
when I see something like
Daniel Martell says a lot of things. And
Oh, man. That bums me out. I'm going to have to write it down and find it. Or I'm just going to be sitting here looking for it all the time. Oh, it was up there, Joe Neal. What are you saying? Dia's too busy with Mama fixing the art. Oh. He's directed the conversation that way, so I mean, it's still an issue. The kids' bucket and spades were brand new, not used. They were put there when the place was cleaned up, yet the kids were still missing Lori Green. Well, maybe they figure that Daniel's other kids would be coming over and visiting in that sense. Hey, Esther. Excuse me. Well, from a coverage standpoint, there's not much really to update people on, Tammy, from like news outlets and things like that. Don't think that you're getting any sort of important information from these clowns. The conversation is still on fire. The conversation's always fire. Yeah, he says with a surprise, Aaron, I don't know why they didn't find anything yet. Sounds like he put stuff out there for them to find, like a little treasure hunt. No, actually, Daniel, we can't believe that you couldn't go out there and find your kids in those 20 minutes. All of a sudden, you're putting all of this stuff onto the search and rescue team like they have some sort of responsibility to bring these 2 lost kids home that aren't actually out there in the first place. And at what time, Daniel, did you start... Did you remember with that whole process when he coming, made it look like he was coming to the realization that this story about the kids walking into the bush was bullshit? And it was all put on him by Maleyha. He's been all over the place in that sense. Welcome, Roxanne. Like, he's sitting there in front of the TV making it look like he's so active in this particular search that shouldn't have taken you any longer than 5 minutes. You hadn't find your kids in 5 minutes, you're going to have to take this to the next level. Not meaning pawn it off on the police for them to figure things out on you. But that's what you were going for in the first place. It seems like they can't quite decide whether or not they should just go balls to the wall and claim that somebody came in and kidnapped their kids. Wouldn't you be, as a parent, screaming that out loud? Well, obviously, if I can't find my kids in like 10 minutes, I called them in because I can't find them. Somebody took my kids. Absolutely. These people want to hum and haw around everything and hope things works out and yeah, have no idea what went on. We still know they can't be found out there. Like, that's just a normal fucking thing. It's a little bit too matter of fact. And he's saying anything. Daniel's ex is smart to have moved away. Oh my God. Did she move away? What do you mean? How do you know all this, Teresa? She won't let them see it until Jack and Lily are found. That's the smartest thing. Why? Because your ex-husband's a child killer. That would be a problem. I'd have a problem sending my kids to a child killer on the weekends. Yeah, he totally planted that evidence in your honest opinion? Absolutely. Whether that's important or not. Oh, apparently last night he came up and wanted to speak into detail about the pink blankets and why they were important why they were important to this particular case, and he still hasn't explained it. He's just talked about it a little bit more. Oh, they're this and that. It's really neither here nor there. Who the fuck cares, okay? We don't want to talk about your staged fucking blanket. Okay? Usually if it has something to do with the kids, you would have no problem sharing it and it would be common knowledge at this point. The fact that you want to play games over it tells me that you're using it just to have a way of manipulating the narrative with people after the fact. And by the same time acknowledging that he didn't before tell you the reasons why it was relevant. Now he wanted to talk to Sonny last night and straighten out exactly what made those so important to this case. Well, why the fuck... why are you holding back any sort of information like this? Why are you changing it after the fact? We already know why it would be important to the case. If there's blood splatter on it and they can associate it back to Lily, it's just another example of you staging this entire scene because, in fact, it fits a pattern in that sense. Coming back to putting even more suspicion back onto the... it wants you to think. Or else you would know it already. Unique. There's no way in heck you would be dropping your children off at Daniel's place. Oh, hell to the no. You have to take me... Well, she's just the one to go to. You got an open door here. Listen, there is a lot to be said for allowing people to speak openly on your channel, especially in the circumstance with 2 missing kids. There's that working for her, okay? I'm glad it's happening over there. What else would we bitch about? It's just an opportunity for him to continue strengthening the case against him. It's just not, people just get too into what they perceive or what they think people are believing at any one particular time. Fuck it. God bless her. He was in Sonny's chat. He makes you sick now? Absolutely, Tammy. I've got to get out. I can't be around when that kind of stuff's going on. She allows him that platform, though. Notice he won't go on men's channels. You know what? I think we've explained kind of where she's coming from. Listen, it could be a lot worse, all right? It could be a lot worse in that circumstance. It could be a lot worse. Like, for example, you remember, what's her name? Daisy from Crime Crazy and Critters on the Farm, in that sense? She has to believe everything and champion all the bullshit narratives. Oh, it's pretty bad. I don't know whether she does it intentionally, but it's not very nice for the ears. Who should be blocked? Oh, Daniel, in your opinion? Do you know what? I kind of tend to agree with you, but I don't think, you know what? I don't think. I agree with you, but I don't think that should mean that she stops what she's doing. I kind of think it's funny. People get so pissed off, but it's a good opportunity to remind people, not to take things at face value in that sense. I'm sure the RCMP are meeting with Daniel regularly, but it's not to give him information, Barbara. You're right. Absolutely. It's the peace investigation tactic. They're building rapport with Daniel, and Daniel is turning around to the public and claiming that he's interpreting that report to be that he's working with them in this sense, bringing them all kinds of valuable information, no doubt. Oh, just fantastic. In that process is where they're, but they're easy to come down on. Excuse me. All right, let me continue with this for a second. So we got to make our way down here. Guys, it's okay. What truly did Janie not let police in the camper? She was worried her dog would get out at someone. The police searched it 3 times that I'm aware of, says Maleyha in that sense. Well, she didn't want the dog to get out. So she denied even searching. You wouldn't put your dog on a leash, go outside and let the cops come in. It's funny how she just offers up excuses for people in that environment. Something's going on there. Maleyha addresses why Janie initially resisted police searching her. Justin is unimpressed by this, arguing that a dog should be leashed and that 3 searches aren't enough, implying Janie's excuse is weak. Oh, this is all Justin's take on this, by the way. I'm going to scroll down. We're going to get a little bit more newer information here. We've been there already. Let's get some better stuff. Successfully prosecuting family members as prime suspects in a child murder case is particularly when no bodies are found and detectives are certain the suspects are lying. It's one of the most challenging scenarios in criminal investigations. Well, thank God this one's easy then. From a detective standpoint, building a case that meets the legal threshold for conviction requires a strategic, evidence-driven approach, relying heavily on circumstantial evidence, forensic analysis, and investigative techniques to overcome the absence of direct evidence like a body would bring. So let's talk here for a second. Establishing probable cause without a body. Probable cause is the reasonable belief based on facts and evidence that a crime, in this case murder, was committed, double murder, and the suspects are responsible. Without a body, the threshold is harder to meet but not impossible. The detective's role in all of this: evidence of a crime. Detectives must establish that the children are likely deceased, not merely missing. In the Sullivan case, the absence of Jack and Lily since May 2nd, 2025, with no shoes, food, or evidence of wandering. No evidence of wandering, guys. Combed with their young age, under 6, suggests they didn't survive independently. The pink blanket in a ditch and boot prints are physical clues that may indicate foul play. Suspect lies and inconsistencies. Known lies such as Daniel's conflicting media statements versus consistent police statements, and Maleyha's vague timeline, waking Daniel at 9:40 a.m. There ain't no sleeping going on when you guys are tweaking out like that either, by the way. You might be just laying there in the bed watching the clock, but that's not technically sleeping. I don't buy any of that. Waking Daniel at 9:40 a.m., calling police at 10:01 a.m. are critical. Detectives use these inconsistencies to build a case that suspects are concealing the truth. For example, Maleyha claims that Janie didn't call about the children being outside, unlike previous instances, is a red flag. Suspicious behavior like Maleyha's prolonged silence or Daniel's clean shirt with knees after allegedly searching suggests deception. Detectives document these to support probable cause as they indicate consciousness of guilt. Consciousness of guilt. Ooh-wee! There's a term. Yep. Daniel. Without a body, proving death is difficult. In the Sullivan case, the lack of an Amber Alert and no abduction evidence, for example, no tire marks, point to a crime within the household. But speculations, like Justin's rage theory, isn't enough. Detectives must gather sufficient circumstantial evidence to justify an arrest, as direct evidence like a body or confession is absent. Building a circumstantial case with admissible evidence. The types of evidence. Physical evidence. Even without bodies, detectives seek forensic traces like blood, DNA, or hair in the trailer, camper, or nearby areas. For example, the ditch. The pink blanket and boot prints could yield DNA or fibers linking suspects to crime scenes. In the Sullivan case, the trailer's hole, or Janie's camper, are potential evidence sites, but the transcripts, no cadaver dogs were used prior, which is a missed opportunity. Digital evidence, phone records, GPS data, and app activity are crucial. Maleyha's Google tracker showing her at Dollarama, dollar store. Well, I wonder what they were getting at the dollar store. Would it surprise you guys to say that they were feeding their family all of that highly processed garbage that they sell there for, what is it like? It's a imitation. Oh. Daniel's phone activity or lack thereof, example powered down, could reveal gaps. Detectives could subpoena these records to verify timelines and detect deletions. For example, Maleyha's unsent messages. Witness testimony, statements from Wade, neighbors. Example, Janie at family, like Belinda Wade, others. The children's pajama, the circumstantial evidence, the children's pajamas, no food/shoes, and timeline gaps. Example, the 9:40 a.m. to 10:01 a.m. suggests they didn't wander far. Daniel's alleged rug use, controlling behavior, and abuse of Jack build a narrative of dangerous household. Maleyha's inaction, example, not checking on the children at certain times, support neglect or a cover-up. Absolutely it does, doesn't it? It's got to be either or. Well, it can be both, too. They're neglecting and covering up. The detective's role in this: forensic collection, conduct thorough searches of the trailer, Janie's camper, and nearby areas, like the landfill, using luminol, ground-penetrating radar, and scent dogs. In the Sullivan case, the 3 camper searches were insufficient, per Justin, highlighting the need for more rigorous forensics. Interrogations use techniques like the Reed method to exploit lies. That's good cop, bad cop, the Reed method. Detectives would confront Maleyha on her vague dozing off claim. Absolutely they would have. I want to see that interview. And Daniel on his shifting stories. Example, 3911 call versions, prior analysis. Pressure can elicit confessions or inconsistencies, as suspects may crack under scrutiny. like Daniel's emotional reaction to Jack. Corroboration. Cross-reference evidence such as Maleyha's Dollarama trip against store hours, for example, or Daniel's claim of searching against physical evidence. Contradictions like Daniel's knowledge of the school app versus Maleyha's claim are probed through records. Challenges. No body cases can rely circumstantial evidence, which must be overwhelming to convince a jury. In the Sullivan case, the lack of forensic evidence, for example, no blood found, and unverified claims like Wade's allegations. Remember, this is all stuff that we, the public, are knowing, not actually affirmed, confirmed things from the standpoint of investigators. Detectives must piece together a compelling narrative despite these gaps. These are just coming from a little sliver. It just gives you an idea. Of course, we went through proving Reus, menace rea, causation, the guilty act, the guilty mind, and the causation of the act. So the legal element of that, friends, this is key actually. Prove a deliberate act caused the children's death. Without bodies, detectives inferred death from circumstances, like the children's vulnerability, no shoes, food, and household dysfunction. Daniel's abuse, bruises on the children, suggest prior harm, potentially escalating to murder. The guilty mind. Establish intent, premeditation, or recklessness, disregard for safety. Daniel's alleged rage, targeting Jack, and Maleyha's neglect, not checking on the children, would indicate recklessness or intent. Maleyha's claim of Daniel's control suggests a pattern of harmful behavior. Under causation, you need to link the suspect's actions to presumed death. The narrow timeline, 9:40 a.m. to 10:01 a.m., and the lack of abduction evidence, prior analysis, imply the crime occurred in the trailer. Detectives must show the suspect's actions. Example, Daniel's violence, Maleyha's inaction caused the outcome. Overcoming suspect lies. Daniel's implausible stories and mirror writing, sweaters, mirror writing, behavioral cues, Maleyha's silence, clean clothes versus search claims. Detectives may separate suspects to exploit inconsistencies as Maleyha and Daniel blame each other. Let's skip ahead. Let me see. We can go back to that in a second. One moment, please. I've been working away on this silly one for well over a week now. It's so long. Finding things when I need them is a bit of a trick. So, forensic psychology provides tools to analyze suspect behavior, assess credibility, and uncover motives, which are crucial when direct evidence like a body is absent. The following insights are drawn from established forensic psychology principles like statement analysis, behavioral profiling, deception detection, shout out, and applied to the Sullivan case using the Nichi transcripts and prior context. What does it say? Forensic psychologists use statement analysis to identify deception by examining verbal and nonverbal cues, such as narrative inconsistencies, over-explaining, and lack of emotional congruence. Research by Vrij, 2008, highlights that deceptive statements often lack chronological coherence. Oh, we'll fancy that with Maleyha. Include excessive justification. Remember, excessive justification? Fuck, Maleyha gave her justification right in that first interview before she told you what happened, telling you that they're not the type of parents not to be outside with the kids when they're out there, after she told you that that's exactly what they were doing in the moment. But they're not that type of parents. You know, like, let's kick him right in the crotch. Research by Vrij, so I said that. So chronological coherence, include excessive justification and show reduced emotional expression compared to truthful accounts. Nonverbal cues like head shaking or eye closing can indicate discomfort or concealment. Ekman, 2009. So its application to the Sullivan case. Maleyha's lack of emotional distress during her interview despite her children's disappearance is a red flag. Forensic psychologists would note her non-linear narrative, with the children playing outside before the room goes quiet, as a sign of fabrication, as truthful accounts are typically sequential. Her overexplaining and the use of we statements suggest a rehearsed, coordinated story with Daniel, indicating possible collusion. The narrative slip, the room, suggests an indoor incident, aligning with Justin's theory a little earlier. Detectives would use these cues to structure interrogations, pressing Maleyha on timeline gaps and emotional incongruence. Now, Janie's contradictory claims of daily supervision versus passive observation and her hypothetical wood statements about snow activities indicate deception, as truthful accounts use past tense for specific memories. Adams, 1996. Her past tense slip weren't my grandchildren, end quote, and subsequent of her knowledge. Forensic psychologists would recommend analyzing Janie's stilted cadence and manipulative guilt tripping to probe her awareness of this particular incident. Oh, yeah. Let me see. Joe Neal, what's up? They don't even have evidence for the neglect. Anyone taking a criminal law course in here? They don't have evidence for the neglect. They have an admission in that sense, Joe Neal. They indicated neglect within their language. And that's evidence. Layla. Is sick leave, is that what Daniel says he's on? Is sick leave a euphemism for being afraid of being harassed and beat up by his coworkers? You talking from the lumber mill? Yeah. Yeah, Joe. They would have CPS reports regarding the living conditions in black guys, Osprey. It would all be part of the evidence suggesting that, yeah. Not that maybe they decided to close off the investigation. Maybe, it was inconclusive. Maybe it was in the first stages of it. It doesn't sound like it began very long ago. It was just a recent sort of event that Children's Aid came into the scenario. But there's probably... Dope sick, Mr. Hemi, you know it. Sick leave equals too strong to go in your opinion. I didn't. Oh, are you guys meaning that he's off on sick leave in that sense? Oh, stress leave. All this. I don't expect him to be returning to work. Can you imagine your employee is a child killer in that sense? I'd have an issue. Why don't you take some time off? In fact, why don't you not come back at all? What are you saying up there, Joe? You're talking about you're worried about making the see. I understand what you're saying about criminal negligence causing death. They could pursue those charges currently. But why would they want to aim low in this circumstance when you know that the truth is just a shot away? You know that you're almost there. You want the facts. You want the location of the bodies. You're going to have to play the game to a certain extent and catch them. Like, they already volunteered everything that they need for criminal negligence. And that might be one of the charges. Maybe it might be one. But somebody is more responsible, in my opinion, than the others. And that would have to be the stepfather, the boyfriend in this circumstance. It's his house, his rules, his way of living. He has the power control there already before she moved in. Remember, she got rescued in that sense. Spring. Well, again, Tammy, I think we had the big conversation yesterday. I don't want to continue to repeat myself in that sense. But yeah, it's fair to say they don't have enough of certain evidence at this point to put them on. Therefore, it has to be something different. Not a different outcome. They're just going about it in a different way because of what it is that they're given, right? They've got to work with what it is that they have. But don't mistake that for giving up. Yeah, there's all kinds of evidence, Joe, of of negligence in this circumstance. That's all. I think, I just want to let you know, Tammy, that I understand that just because they don't have enough now to arrest them doesn't mean that they won't be going about doing it in a different manner. It's just that when you think that you've come to a conclusion and you think, well, if I know this and the police know this, why aren't they arrested right now? That makes me panic. That's the wrong way to be thinking about it in this circumstance. Hopefully some of this gave you some direction in where to look, like the piece, the investigative techniques in that circumstance. Listen, the only person that knows all of this is the Crown attorney, the Crown prosecutor. That's all. I can't wait till this son of a bitch does a perp walk. Anybody else? Oh, I've never have my bias worked up against a couple individuals like this more so than a person than this particular case. Sadly. Like, there's no possible way that they're not involved. But yeah, Joe Neal, you're getting at the point of getting them in for something in order to get some extract some sort of confession out of them to implicate the other person in a greater crime. If that's the truth, then unfortunately we've got to wait some time. There's still I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure if that's exactly the way that Canadian cops work necessarily. They might not be able to do that. Like, it's bizarre that you let child killers just roam free like this. And don't think that they're not. There's got to be investigators in there just as pissed off as we are, if not more, because they're privy to more information. David, you've got a problem with Belinda? I don't anymore. I wish that woman nothing but the best. You think Belinda was in a difficult situation? Oh, absolutely she is. Especially when you look back upon things. It's a horrible experience to go through from the grandmother's standpoint. And it's outside of her control as a respectable adult. The best thing that you can do is provide, a safe upbringing, comfortable, and love your children. Enjoy it, for crying out loud. The problems really start is when you get addicted to these substances. It takes that element right out of it, and you put your fix and your priority ahead of everything else. And pretty soon everything else in that environment has to suit the addict style. And think about that from a child's perspective in a household where both parents are abusing substances. Christine, David doesn't have a problem. I just find her a troublemaker. She's more trying to find Daniel and or Maleyha guilty rather than focusing on what the truth actually might be. Well, I don't know about that, David. I think that's one and the same. I think because the parents and the caregivers in this sense are responsible. That's Maleyha, and I think it's probably what you're reacting to is the fact that it's all playing out in front of your face on a particular channel. And, it's a bit chaotic in that sense. And the confusion and the not knowing. People just react to that. You can feel however you want about Belinda. Layla, apparently Cindy has a record with CPS2 from her own children, like meeting Maleyha. So not sure if true meta was there, but allegedly they want to keep the kids with family members possible. That's generally the same, but not right this second. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know if maybe that's true. Maybe there's a history, Layla. Who knows about what it's about? I don't think it has anything to do with Jack and Lily at this point, but you're saying that might be a contributing factor to maybe a poor upbringing by Cindy in that sense? Well, maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll find out. It'd be nice to find out. I'll be nice to David. Be nice to David. Barbara says, David, I don't get that impression at all. I think she just wants to find out what happened to Lily and Jack. Well, I get it. I'm with Belinda. I mean, thank God for Belinda, because there's nobody else who is kin to the children that are speaking up on her behalf. Not just that it's public, but it's nice that she's making her presence known in that sense. In light of two people who were supposed to be looking after them, who are telling nothing but lies in order to get away with what's nothing short of murder of their two children. Filicide, friends. Actually, familicide. Because it happened to two siblings in that family environment with the live-in boyfriend. All right, that's the one conclusion I did come to last night. That you can say that this would be a scenario of familicide as opposed to simple filicide. Not that it matters to anybody listening. but it does. It's just what I learned last night now. See, I can retain some information. Lindsay Shannon, Belinda does not make any excuses for her son, but she does love him, absolutely, and let him move home back to help him get back on track. She has stated she has a visit planned for Lily's birthday. She was trying, in your opinion? Yeah, I certainly don't want to say anything negative about her. She goes through enough. People seem to talk about her because they feel that maybe they're just putting themselves in a position of being overprotective of somebody they don't know, which is a weird phenomenon. But They feel that she's being used in the circumstance. I don't think that that's true. Because no matter what, when you know the narrative out there is being fabricated by two suspects, it's nice to have a place to go. You might not like them. You might like them. But to go and at least converse about all the different possibilities, speculate in that circumstance. And that's what happens over there. And Belinda joined that particular group. I think it's a good thing. I think it can be a good thing, considering the circumstances. It's better than it remain in the shadows and the false narrative take over in people's minds and they start believing the falsities that were put forward by the suspects. But that's just my feeling in the moment. Hopefully what's up, Janie? Hopefully they know partly what happened and they're busy building a case against them. Absolutely. I absolutely feel they are. They have to be. That's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Yeah. Well, we don't know exactly what their routine is. The things that Daniel in the circumstance is bringing to us. Which is just as good as not knowing. What's up, Chris? Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Barbara M. Belinda is surrounded by dysfunctional people and just trying to find out what happened. I think that's right. I think she's fairly straightforward. She's easy to read. She's not out for any sort of ulterior motives by any means. I think it's hard not to be moved by all of the evil in the air in that sense. Like, look at what they're trying to do on the backs of these poor children. Who raised Cody? I don't know that one, Mr. Hemi. All right, friends, it's 2.5 hours. I'm going to get off. I'll be back in a little bit, and we'll continue the conversation into these particular douchebags. Stay tan, and thank you for joining and sticking it out this long, friends. Peace.